Welcome back everybody to a cloudy but dry Silverstone for the third and final race this weekend of the Radical Challenge Championship here on the Grand Prix circuit, where the Radical Challenge Championship competitors are joined on an invitational basis by the SR1 Cup. Marcus Clutton sits on pole position and Jerome Sadlier, his main championship rival, sits alongside. But for Marcus, 2 race wins out of the 2 races this weekend. Jerome Sadlier has been the runner-up on both occasions. The cars are heading off on their final formation lap ahead of this 45-minute pit stop race. So as they head off on their formation lap, let's guide you through the grid. Marcus Clutton and Jerome Sadlier on the front row of the grid. It's Jason Rishover and Rod Goodman on row number 2, with Spencer Bourne and Shane Stoney on row number 3. John McLeod and Elliot Goodman on row number 4. And row number 5 is where we see Mark Richards and Tom Ashton, who will start alongside him. The next row of the grid is row number 6, Peter Tyler and Martin Verity. Then it's Jack Constable and John Caldwell ahead of Mark Williams and Chris Short. Jakob Zielonka is there on the 9th row of the grid alongside Nick Hull, who will start. And row number 10, Neil Glover, will start alongside Chris Preen. For the Radical SR1 Cup competitors, well, Dean Warriner has already been twice a race winner in that category this weekend. He's joined by Mackenzie Walker on the front row of the grid. Then it's Andy Lowe and Paul Clark, Fraser McFadden and James Pinkerton. So with it being a pit stop race, we've got success seconds to worry about for some of the cars. Marcus Clutton on pole, an extra 20 seconds to spend in the pits relative to others. Jerome Sadlier alongside, an extra 15. Row 2 of the grid, Jason Rishover has 5 seconds. Rod Goodman, however, has 0. And the third row of the grid, Spencer Bourne and Shane Stoney, also off scratch. No additional success seconds for either of those two to worry about. The cars in neat 2x2 order, ready for the start of this 45-minute race. The lights are on the gantry. We're about to get racing going for the final time this weekend at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit. Jerome Sadlier and Marcus Clutton absolutely wheel to wheel as they go over the start-finish line for the lead of the race. And as they head round through Copse Corner, it looks so Jerome Sadlier just had his nose ahead of the 2-times race winner over the course of this weekend. And he has indeed, Jerome Sadlier, taken up the early lead of the race. Marcus Clutton down into 2nd. Jason Rishover there in 3rd place. And 4th at the moment, that is Rod Goodman that sits there in 4th position, with 5th place being disputed by Shane Stoney, the reigning SR1 Cup champion, and Spencer Bourne by the look of things. Watch out for number 11, Jack Constable. He'll be charging his way through the field, having started way down in 13th position on the grid for this one, in what's been a topsy-turvy weekend for him. Non-finish in the first race, was on the podium in 3rd position in the 2nd race. The cars all fan out 2 and 3 wide as they head up towards Stowe Corner for the first time. The Radical SR1 Cup competitors are heading round through Stowe. There goes Nick Hull, being chased by the leading SR1 Cup car, which is Dean Warriner in the early stages, but they work their way through Vale up towards Club Corner. Jerome Sadlier, runner-up in this championship last year, looking to try and grab a win if he can. He has claimed a win so far this season. That was round 1 of the championship up at Alton Park, but he has not claimed another victory since. The cars file their way down the International pit straight, past the wing, and work their way up towards the flat out. Albie, there is the number 25 car, Martin Verity, going wheel to wheel to try and progress up from 12th position on the grid. But at the moment, the best of the fights is between Rod Goodman and Shane Stoney, who very easily is able to work his way through on the exit of the loop and up towards Aintree Corner. So that should now be, and in fact is indeed, up to 4th place for Shane Stoney, having started 6th already. 2 cars picked off in the early stages. Up towards the braking area for Luffield Corner. Rod Goodman having started in 4th position, now down into 5th place and looking to try and hang on to the coattails of the car that's just taken the position away from him. But Jerome Sadlier chalks the first lap into the book. Chased by Marcus Clutton, Jason Rishover in 3rd place. Then it's Shane Stoney ahead of Rod Goodman. Then it's Tom Ashton completing the top 6. Mark Richards, Spencer Bourne, John McLeod, and then Jack Constable. So already inside the top 10, having started in 13th position. Watch out for the number 11 car. The man that was 3rd in the championship last year is sitting right on the coattails of that white and blue car of John McLeod, who finished 4th in the standings last year. They weave their way through the twists and turns at Beckett's. Jack Constable trying to get a good run on John McLeod, who bounces over the curbs and was going to rejoin at Chapel Curve, and he's going to lose out surely in a straight line. Yeah, Jack Constable in the background alongside him and has the inside line when they head towards Stowe Corner. So another place gained by Jack Constable in the early stages of this race. He will now try and set about closing up on the next car ahead of him, which is number 8 Spencer Bourne, who finished 8th in the first race of the weekend, finished 6th in the second of the weekend. Leading pack of cars already round through the Club Corner and starting to accelerate their way down the International pit straight. There's Spencer Bourne coming under pressure from Jack Constable, who hasn't dispensed with the attentions of John McLeod just as yet. John desperate to try and have another top 10 finish if he can, and now John McLeod is coming under pressure from Elliot Goodman, who draws himself alongside and is going to have the inside line as they sweep their way through the right-hander at Abbey. Place gained for Elliot Goodman. In towards the braking area for Village and then up towards the loop. Rod Goodman under pressure from number 7 Tom Ashton. That's the car that's leading the team's championship element of the race so far. Tom will hand that car over to Alden Goodmanson for part 2 of the race, but the leading 4 cars now already through Brooklands, the best of the fights, is for 5th, 6th and 7th place. Rod Goodman under pressure from Tom Ashton, who is in that dichotomy. He wants to attack. He might have to defend if he's not careful, because Mark Richards is there as well. Mark Richards is another one of the drivers that will have to serve extra time in the pit stops. 10 success seconds for him when the pit window opens. So the leading 4 go through. Here's the battle for 5th, 6th and 7th place. The order hasn't shuffled, however. It's still the largely blue car of Rod Goodman, who had a 5th position in the second race of the weekend. That's his best result of the season so far. Radical SR1 Cup competitors all together. Now, Dean Warrener leads, but it's James Pinkerton now, the 2018 SR1 Cup champion, that is in second place, and Mackenzie Walker, who's had 2 second places so far this weekend, is sitting there in third place in the black car with its red flashes. Car number 27, the man from London. Out of Copse Corner, starting to sprint their way down the straight towards Maggots. The overall race leaders, though, are already up towards the braking area for Stowe Corner. Jerome de Sadlier just having gapped Marcus Clutton a little bit. Jason Rishover not under pressure from Shane Stoney, but now Tom Ashton looking for the inside line and going through ahead of Rod Goodman. So Tom Ashton now up into 5th position overall, and that is the car that leads the team challenge aspect of the race for those cars that are shared between 2 drivers. Rod Goodman having lost a further position now. He is now under pressure also from Mark Richards, who's been on the podium once so far this weekend. The first of the pit stop races of the weekend, he finished in 3rd position. Had a bit of a spin in race number 2, which dropped him down through the order, and he ultimately finished in 10th place. So he's desperate to try and cap off the weekend with another strong result, Mark Richards. Working their way up towards the braking area for Village. He's a bit too far back on Rod Goodman to try and sneak through on that occasion. He's also not going to try anything at the loop. Tighter exit from the loop, though. Might get him up the inside at Aintree Corner and give him a run down the Wellington Straight, but nothing doing. For the SR1 Cup, top 3 still together. Dean Warrener, James Pinkerton and Mackenzie Walker. All of these cars here on an invitational basis this weekend. And all 3 of those drivers have featured very well in the main SR1 Cup Championship races that have been held over the course of the 2020 season so far. Dean Warrener clipping the curb beautifully at Farm Corner, up towards Abbey as the race leaders head over the start-finish line. Another lap concluded, with still the order remaining the same. Now, however, for 3rd position, Jason Rishover is under pressure from the reigning SR1 Cup champion, Shane Stoney, former Ginetta racer. His father was a very quick kart racer as well. He's looking to try and get himself into the podium spots here. Nothing doing at the moment as they head round through Maggots and then to the sweeps at Beckett's, where they sweep right and then left and then right again before they then turn left at Chapel Curve and along the Hanger Straight. And this could be an opportunity for Shane Stoney to try and get through. Dean Warrener still feeling the pressure in the SR1 Cup, though. Runs a little bit wide through Lovefield. That opens the door and allows James Pinkerton to draw himself alongside. James Pinkerton sharing the car with Ross Elliott over the course of this weekend. And the 2018 SR1 Cup champion now goes through to try and take up the lead of that element of the race. Dean Warrener's trying to fight back on the way up towards Copse Corner. They go side by side through Copse Corner. Fantastic stuff. Great respect from both drivers. And they are still together because now Mackenzie Walker wants to join in the fun as well. It's going to be James Pinkerton from Mackenzie Walker. Dean Warrener, who was leading the class a few corners ago, is now down into 3rd position in the SR1 Cup in these little 1340 RPE Suzuki tuned cars. He now drops down to 3rd position. The 2 times winner so far this weekend is now on the bottom step of the podium. And James Pinkerton is pushing as hard as he can to try and hang on to the lead of the class. James Pinkerton heads up towards the braking area for Stowe Corner. Mackenzie Walker, then Dean Warrener, who wants to try and keep a clean sheet if he can. 2 race wins from 2 in that particular class of the Radical Challenge Championship for this weekend. Elsewhere further down through the order, this is Spencer Bourne, who is now coming under pressure from Jack Constable. Remember, Jack started down in 13th position on the grid. Spencer Bourne started in 5th place. Neither of the cars have additional success penalties to worry about as and when the pit window opens, as Shane Stoney looks to try and grab third place away from Jason Rishover yet again. Jason Rishover is trying to make sure that he just clings on to that position. Shane Stoney is side by side all the way round through Luffield with him. They're almost pushing each other. Up towards the start-finish line go the leading pair, but who's going to be in third position? The blue car of Jason Rishover, the black car of Shane Stoney. They are both getting caught by Tom Ashton as well, as they continue to squabble and are holding each other up. Jason Rishover still just about there in third position. Shane Stoney in fourth place. He's going to have to watch his mirrors now, because Tom Ashton is moving around, weaving behind Shane Stoney to try and put off the reigning SR1 Cup champion from 2019, whilst he is trying to attack Jason Rishover and get himself into the podium spots. Come the pit stop window, Jason Rishover has an extra 5 success seconds to spend in the pits, which means at the moment Shane Stoney, even if he sits behind him, should be able to overhaul him in the pit stop window, but Shane doesn't want to wait for that long. The man from Yorkshire alongside Jason Rishover, he's got the inside line for Stowe Corner. There's nothing Jason Rishover can do. He can't turn into the corner. What he needs to do is make sure that he gets cleanly off it, because Tom Ashton otherwise would be through and would steal a further place away. So down to fourth for Rishover, up to third for Shane Stoney. Tom Ashton hunting down the cars ahead and looking to try and squeeze his way through. He will hand the car over to Alden Goodmanson for part 2 of the race, and Jason Rishover's going to lose out again there. The very rapid Tom Ashton gains a position, which means that Jason Rishover now drops down into 5th position and still has another car not that far behind him, that being the black and blue number 52 car in the hands of Mark Richards. Now the gap for the lead is closing up a little bit here. Jerome de Sadlier still leads Marcus Clutton. Marcus will have to remain stationary in the pits for an extra 20 seconds. The race leader an extra 15 seconds. Here comes James Pinkerton now, still leading the SR1 Cup class from number 27, Mackenzie Walker. Dean Warrener just dropping a little bit further away. Mackenzie Walker, who's already had 2 second places in the SR1 Cup this weekend. But for the lead of the race, Jerome de Sadlier is coming under increasing pressure from Marcus Clutton here. Marcus, the championship leader coming into this weekend, has failed to finish off either the first or the second step of the podium all season, has claimed more wins than anybody else, is now looking to try and re-attack for the lead of the race. But Jerome de Sadlier having none of it. The Swiss driver pitches the car in towards Cops Corner. A little bit of mid-corner oversteer there, which he had to correct part the way through. It just pushed him wide on the exit and let him run wide onto the curbs. You can get away with that once or twice, but if you keep running wide onto the curbs, you will end up with a time penalty. So Jerome de Sadlier will be hugely conscious of that. Marcus Clutton sitting there in second position, looking to try and take up the lead of the race. He's going to sit in the slipstream as they head down the hanger straight this time through. And is he going to be close enough as they head up towards the brake area for Stowe Corner? No, he's just too far away to try a move, so they will still head round through Stowe Corner in the same order. Number 5, Jerome de Sadlier leading. Number 69, Marcus Clutton in second position. Here's Spencer Bourne under pressure from Rod Goodman, with the charging number 11 car of Jack Constable still looking to try and thread his way even further up through the order from his 13th position on the grid. But the leading pair are already part the way around the lap, past the wing, the International pit straight, which is the start line for the Grand Prix cars, but it's only about half the way around the lap on the configuration that we're running this weekend in the Radical Challenge Championship. Through the Vale and in towards Club Corner, number 25 Martin Verity under enormous pressure from the number 80 car behind, the black and Dayglow car of Peter Tyler, as they fight for positions down towards the bottom of the top 10. So they're still rolling their sleeves up and slugging it out as to who's going to get the better over who, as are the leading pair. Jerome de Sadlier still under pressure from Marcus Clutton, who will know that he's got to remain stationary for an extra 5 seconds relative to the car ahead of him, which is why he's hugely keen to try and take the lead of the race and pull out an advantage if he can. However, Jerome de Sadlier, of course, will have other ideas about that. Another lap completed. Up towards Cops Corner they'll come. The order remains the same. Jerome de Sadlier from Marcus Clutton in second position. The car that's in third place, Shane Stoney, is looking good at the moment, because come the pit stop window opening, he has no extra seconds to spend in the pit lane other than those compulsory as part of the championship regulations, whereas the 2 cars ahead of him, Jerome de Sadlier, the race leader, 15 seconds. For Marcus Clutton, an extra 20. And at the moment, Shane Stoney is, well, he's away behind them, but he should be able to overhaul them come the pit stop window. Down the hanger straight they will go. Jerome de Sadlier leading. Marcus Clutton in second place has just dropped away an extra couple of car lengths perhaps as they head down the hanger straight. They feed their way through the right-hander at Stowe Corner and then downhill into the Vale, whilst the rest of the field are still working their way through the Maggots and Beckett's and Chapel Complex, including the black car with its gold flashes, which is Elliot Goodman, who has got not that far behind him, number 75, which is Chris Short. He will remain stationary for an extra 5 seconds following his performance earlier on in the weekend. The race leaders head up towards the flat-out right-hand kink at Abbey Corner, then the flat-out left-hand kink at Farm. Heavy braking area at Village Corner coming up, but Marcus Clutton is just too far away from Jerome de Sadlier to do anything about taking the lead of the race through that part of the corner. Up towards the loop, he's not going to do anything there, but if he gets a good run coming off the loop, he might have half an opportunity as they head up towards Aintree Corner, but he just sits behind the race leader. Martin Verity still under pressure from Peter Tyler. We picked up on this a few laps ago, but as yet Peter Tyler has not been able to muscle his way through and take the place away from Martin Verity, so the order between those two still remains the same. Up towards the braking area for Luffield comes Jerome de Sadlier. Doesn't exactly make the apex. Marcus Clutton has got the inside line, and surely he's going to sneak through now to grab the lead of the race. Yeah, very, very, very small mistake from Jerome de Sadlier, and that was all Marcus Clutton needed. There was enough of a gap to get the car up the inside. He goes through to take up the lead of the race and will now try and pull out a 5-second gap if he can from that car, number 5, Jerome de Sadlier, because Marcus Clutton, the new race leader, knows he has to remain stationary for an extra 20 seconds in the pits. It's an extra 15 seconds for Jerome de Sadlier relative to others. Rod Goodman's still having a busy old race. He's still got John McLeod sitting right behind him trying to thrust his way through. They're just outside of the top 6, these two cars. Through goes Spencer Bourne, there's Jack Constable, and then we get the car of Rod Goodman being hunted down by John McLeod as they thread their way through Cops Corner. John McLeod using all of the curbs but no more in his pursuit of the car ahead, and those two are having a great little battle. Elliot Goodman is behind them as they feed their way through the sweeps at Beckett's, which in these cars, with the downforce that you get and the fantastic Hankook slick tyre that they all run, must be so exhilarating through that part of the circuit. Here's our leading Radical SR1 Cup competitor, James Pinkerton, who actually started 6th on the grid of the SR1 Cup drivers that joined the Radical Challenge Championship grid for this weekend. He's not got much daylight really between himself and Mackenzie Walker, so he can't afford to let up at this stage of the race. As for Marcus Clutton, since taking the lead of the race, he has now pulled away from Jerome de Sadlier, but remember, he needs a 5-second gap in reality. The drivers are suited and booted. The pit window is shortly going to open, and then all of the cars will descend into the pit lane, whether they are solo drivers or part of the team challenge. Peter Tyler still bottled up at the moment behind Martin Verity. He's not close enough to try and attack. Into the pit lane comes Mark Richards, so he is one of the first to dive into the pit lane and conduct his pit stop, and he will have to remain stationary for the mandatory period plus 10 seconds. Also coming into the pit lane is Jakub Zielonka at the wheel of the number 13 car. So the mechanics having a chat to him. They will also adjust the tyre pressures and do any work that they need to do. Marcus Clutton still continues in the lead of the race, bounces over the curbs using all of the curbs, but no more heading round through that part of the circuit. And also from the Radical SR1 Cup, Mackenzie Walker dives for the pit lane, as does the number 22 car, which is Andy Lowe, another one of the drivers in the SR1 Cup this weekend. Out of the pit lane goes number 7. That was Tom Ashton driving the car in the first part of the race. Arden Goodmanson has taken over, and the leading driver from the SR1 Cup is in. James Pinkerton dives out of the car. Ross Elliott is about to jump into it. Once the mechanics have adjusted the belts, in will go the seat fitting, and then Ross Elliott will be able to pick up on the hard work that James Pinkerton did in the early stages of the race. Quick conversation between the two. In goes the seat fitting for Ross Elliott, and then he will dive into the car and get the thing rolling back out onto track. Busy old pit lane. Elliot Goodman into the pit lane. Dean Warrener from the SR1 Cup also dives his way into the pit lane. Adjustment to tyre pressures. He will let the clock tick down, and then he will rejoin the race. Number 28, Elliot Goodman, having conducted his mandatory pit stop, is back out on circuit now. John McLeod is the car that's ahead of him. Race leader is in as well, so Marcus Clutton in the pit lane. Remember, 20 success seconds to serve. He gets going now, but where is he going to come out relative to Jerome de Sadlier? And more importantly, where will he feed his way back out relative to Shane Stoney, who was the first of the cars before the pit window opened, who'd got no extra time to spend in the pit lane? Jakub Zielonka is under pressure from Richard Avery. That's the number 44 car looking to try and apply the pressure. The SR3s working their way past Gary Warrener's Radical SR1. He stays out of harm's way. He doesn't want to get involved in the main Radical Challenge Championship battle. He's got his own to worry about. Down the pit straight comes John McLeod. followed by Elliot Goodman, and then the next of the cars going through is going to be Rod Goodman, followed by Gary Warrener, who at this stage is looking to try and see if he can work his way up from what was third, wasn't it, in the SR1 Cup before the pit window opened. Jason Rishover also looking to see if he can try and reassert himself back into the podium places. Now it does look as though the lead of the Radical SR1 Cup has gone the way of Mackenzie Walker in the pit stops. The black car with its red flashes heading towards us now. Behind him on road is number 43 Ross Elliott, who is amongst the traffic. Jason Rishover will try and put a lap on Ross Elliott's car. Ross just having taken over that car from James Pinkerton, but it's this car now, this SR1, that's taken up the lead of that aspect of the race, which is Mackenzie Walker. There is Ross Elliott, having taken the car over from the 2018 Radical SR1 Cup champion James Pinkerton, who brought the car up from 6th on the grid to lead the class. There's work to be done though to try and catch the class leader, number 27 Mackenzie Walker, who again will be watching his mirrors. Spencer Bourne feeds his way through. Mackenzie Walker will be focused on the job in hand, letting the quicker SR3s go with their 1500cc engines, and for the 182 brake horsepower 1340cc SR1s, he knows he won't be able to keep up with them. He knows he's being lapped. Stay out of harm's way and try and settle in for the win if he can. Down the straight comes Richard Avery, having taken over the number 44 car. Jacek Zielonka sitting right behind him, but it's Shane Stoney who is now leading the race. I did say, because he got no extra time to spend in the pit lane, that Shane Stoney would be a driver to watch in this race. And well, yeah, off scratch he has been able to take up the lead of the race from Marcus Clutton and Jerome de Sadlier, who both had to stop for longer with their success seconds following how they'd got on in the first pit stop race of the weekend, which Marcus Clutton won and Jerome de Sadlier finished in second place, whereas Shane Stoney finished in 7th position, so had no extra time penalties to worry about. Mackenzie Walker still safely leading the Radical SR1s as he goes over the start-finish line to conclude a lap before too much longer. Here's Jack Constable, number 11, coming under pressure from Spencer Bourne and Jason Rishover. Here's the leader of the Radical SR1 Cup, which is Mackenzie Walker, but look behind him, Ross Elliott again wasn't that far away. The order between these two changed when the pit stops occurred. Spin for Jason Rishover midway through Beckett's. That's a very high speed spin. Does he keep the car out of the gravel? Yes, just about for Jason Rishover. We'll have to wait for a gap in the traffic and then we'll feed his way back round onto circuit, but that is now going to drop Jason Rishover down through the order, I'm afraid, and it's going to mean that he is now outside of the top 10. Spencer Bourne, number 8, still looking to try and close in on what is Jack Constable, who's had a really good race, Jack, from 13th on the grid, but our race leader, Shane Stoney, looking as though he might well be on course for his first win in the Radical Challenge Championship. He's had 2 7ths so far this weekend, his first weekend of racing at Alton Park for Shane Stoney. He had a 3rd place in the first race of the weekend, non-finished in the second, and finished in 5th place in the 3rd race, so it would be his first win. Here's Marcus Clutton, that's the gap relative first to second, and then we were at the arrival of the 3rd place car. This car here, number 5, Jerome de Sadlier, sitting there in 3rd position, a little way distant now from Marcus Clutton, despite the fact that he had to stop for 5 seconds less than Marcus Clutton. Shane Stoney, though, safely on his way back out of Chapel, down the hanger straight yet again as our Radical SR1 class leader Mackenzie Walker heads up towards Cops Corner. Second in the SR1's Ross Elliott, still having the quicker traffic feeding its way through and past him. That's John McLeod now, that's also gone through to lap the number 43 car. Up towards Maggots and Beckett's comes John McLeod, followed by Ross Elliott, and then the next of the cars is going to be Elliot Goodman, who wants to try and put a lap on the Radical SR1 of Ross Elliott. Through, he should be able to work his way without too much trouble with the more powerful SR3 RSX going past the SR1. But for our race leader, Shane Stoney, he is already past the international pit straight and starting to work his way towards a conclusion of another lap. Now this is Richard Avery at this stage. Now this car lies second in the team challenge at the moment. Nick Hull driving that car in the early part of the race. Ross Elliott now having been lapped by Elliot Goodman. Second in the Radical SR1, still with the car bearing the after effects of a little bit of damage earlier on over the course of the weekend. But this car here, number 27, Mackenzie Walker, is the leader of the SR1 category. He's had 2 seconds so far this weekend, hasn't had a win. And this man here, Shane Stoney, has had a 3rd place at Alton Park, but hasn't had a win either in the Radical Challenge Championship. for the 2019 Radical SR1 Cup champion. Is it going to be his first win in the Radical Challenge Championship? The checkered flag is ready. Shane Stoney grabs the win in the final race of the weekend here at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit. Marcus Clutton comes through to finish in second position. He's finished either first or second in every race so far this season, so that is more points to add to his tally, which still will keep him, subject to official confirmation, in the lead of the championship when we leave Northamptonshire. Jerome de Sadlier comes through to finish in third. So it was a win for Shane Stoney from Marcus Clutton and Jerome de Sadlier, with the pairing of Tom Ashton and Arden Edmondson finishing fourth and winning the team challenge. Spencer Bourne and John McLeod complete the top six. Elliot Goodman was in 7th, ahead of Martin Verity. Rod Goodman and Chris Short was there in 10th position. Peter Tyler was in 11th, ahead of Mark Williams in 8th place. Nick Hull and Richard Avery finished in 13th place, ahead of the leading car in the Radical SR1 Cup. Mackenzie Walker came through to claim top honours for those Invitational cars this weekend at Silverstone. Problems in the race for Mark Richards, Andy Lowe, Fraser McFadden, Chris Preen and sadly Jack Constable. So in terms of the championship standings, Marcus Clutton further extends his lead in the championship and now sits there on 380 points from Jerome de Sadlier in second position, and the win for Shane Stoney moves him up to third overall. Jason Rishover, John McLeod and Mark Richards are 4th, 5th and 6th, with Jack Constable, Elliot Goodman, Rod Goodman and John Caldwell completing the top 10. For the team's challenge, Arden Goodmanson and Tom Ashton have a healthy lead in the team challenge over Nick Hull and Richard Avery, with Neil Glover and Jason Green lying there in third. And for the RPE team's trophy, it's a handsome lead for 360 Racing over Raw Motorsport, with Valor Racing completing the top 3. Well, that's all from Silverstone. Next time out, we'll be at Donington Park in the Midlands, so keep an eye on our social media channels and join us for the action from Donington Park. Until then, goodbye.